Welcome back, everyone. I'm Carrington-Russell, Australian award-winning author of Kick Butt Heroines and Dark Romantic Worlds, and I have a very special guest for you today. We are talking to an Amazon top 20 best-selling author known for her delicious and dark romance. We are talking to the one and only Luna Mason. How are you today?
Hi, I'm really good, thank you. How are you?
I'm so good. I am so pumped to have you on here because I've been stalking you just a little bit, just a teeny bit, and you have been hitting everything. Every release you've been having, you've just been shooting up straight into the charts, and I want to know all about it. So take me back to the start and then how you got to here today.
So the start, it was basically I had my son and I was reading a lot, and I got to the point where I think I read at my peak, I read 4 or 5 books in a day. Um, yeah, I can speed read, so I can finish like a decent sized book maybe in like 2 hours.
That's talent.
Yeah. Yeah, no, my grandma taught me when I was from like a young age, not to read smut, but reading in general. And I was always fascinated. She could read so quick. So I made her kind of like teach me. So by the time I was like 12, 13, I was reading like thick books real quick. But yeah, so I read that many in a day, and I thought, okay, I've got a bit of a problem. I can't find anything to read. And I was actually then spending more time on Kindle trying to work out what I hadn't read versus what I actually want to read. And I was actually just getting stuck. And I thought, I've always said it's on my bucket list. I want to publish a book just to say I've published a book, not necessarily to do anything with, just to say I did that. Because not many people can. Um, so I sat down one night and was like, okay, I could do this because I think every reader at some point goes, yeah, I could do that. That's how a lot of us, I guess, get here. And I was watching the boxing with my parents, and this guy came out, and he was like huge. And I thought, okay, boxing. I was going through a sports romance phase, and then I was like, okay, but what if he killed people? Like, what if he was like a murderer? I think that would make him hotter because, I also read a lot of dark romance, and that is where Keller came from, was me sat there. So I got my laptop out and I plotted out 3 books. When I say plot, I use that term loosely. I had like an Excel spreadsheet and some character names and places. Um, and then I joined, I can't remember what it's called, that challenge where you write 50,000 words in like a month.
Is it Nana?
Think so. That one, yeah. I joined that and some like writing groups on Facebook. And I started, I think, November the 4th. And I finished writing the whole book by, I'm pretty sure it was like mid-December, something like that.
That's incredible for your first, but what year was that?
So that would have been 2022. I was writing, then I released it March 1st, 2023.
So then what happened? So basically 6 weeks to write a book, which is phenomenal. And then what were your next steps? Were you like, cool, what do I do now? Like what were the things you put into place? And I'm sure you fumbled a lot. We all do on the first book.
Yeah.
So
So I'd actually been kind of researching it. So I had my son in the like before the summer. And I'd been actually like researching kind of like what my favorite authors were doing at the time. And I noticed they had like ARC teams, and I was like, okay, I'm going to look into this. So I spent a bit of time seeing like what made certain authors' releases, especially indie authors, like successful. And I read a post, it was from JC Hawk. Um, and she obviously is indie published. And I read her books, I loved them. She was like one of my favorite authors, and she managed to quit her job. And it was just like a really inspiring post about like self-publishing. And it was really like helpful. So I had kind of bits in place, and I made friends with a PA on Facebook who's still now my PA. And I was like, look, I don't know what I'm doing, but I think I need an ARC team. And that's about it really. So that's kind of all I had. The main thing was my TikTok. so I randomly set up a author TikTok account just to kind of like, I was seeing what, because I was getting book recommendations from TikTok anyway. So I was just kind of testing out like bits of my book. And one of them, I think my first post, like maybe like the third or fourth one in, hit like 50, 60,000 views. And I had the pre-order up. So that kind of started to trickle into pre-orders coming in. And obviously people signing up to my ARC team. And then I just kept posting. And I think one then took off. It was maybe like a week or so before release day. And that hit like 300,000 views. Yeah, just randomly. But and I was kind of testing it. So I'd thought that was, I think I still do the same thing now that I did then. I'll write a scene, I'll test it, and then see what it does. And then I'll tweak it as I write, so I can make sure. Okay, if it got like let's say 40,000 views, well, I want to try and get it to make 200. So I need to make something more interesting in this particular scene. So that's exactly how book one was written. Me doing that. Um, and I think on then release day, he hit like maybe 200 in the chart, something like that. Just like I couldn't believe it. I was like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. How did this happen? And I think that's a mix of my ARC team, my kind of TikTok, and then posting in Facebook groups. That was kind of all I had behind me and my PA and me going, I don't know what I'm doing, but this is good. This things are happening. Um, so it was kind of, I guess, organized to a point, but not really. Like I just threw it out and to see what happened. And it wasn't until maybe 2 weeks after release, so he kind of stayed around that point, and then I had two viral TikToks kind of back to back, and then he hit the top 50.
Girl, who are you? That's so
Yeah,
good.
he hit the top 50 and he stayed in the top 100 for, I'm gonna say, near on a year. I think he dropped out like three times maybe, until kind of TikTok broke. But he stayed consistently around that point. Um, and obviously at that point, after like the first month, and I realized he was being consistent, and that I could make money out of this. I was supposed to go back to work after maternity leave in, so he published March 1st. I was supposed to go back to work April the 11th, and I phoned up my boss and I was like, I ain't coming in. I'm gonna take a risk with this. All my family were like, you're mad. And I was like, no, I've seen what I can do with this. I think I'm onto something. I don't have time to have a baby, a full-time busy job, and this when this could actually maybe change my life. So I went for it. I didn't go back. And I went straight into writing book two, basically following the same kind of process. But that's when I then started working with Bobby and really kind of, I guess, investing everything back in
Yeah.
and continuing that way. That was kind of the big thing.
I think there's an incredible naivety to when you first release as well, when you have your debut, because you don't know what to expect. And to receive that within book one is just so phenomenal. But also, what I love about this is, although to a degree you didn't know what you were doing, you also did. And you were doing a lot of things that I dare say a lot of authors sometimes aren't willing to do, is trial and error. You were tweaking things as you went. You were testing with your readers, even on TikTok. And I think a lot of authors can sometimes get stuck with that. They think, no, but this is always how I've done things, or it has to be like this. And there's so many different elements now that we do have to adjust and tweak. So, how did you go then with the pressure of writing book two? Because obviously it was so well received. So, was there an added pressure? And then were you thinking, oh, all of a sudden this is a business? What am I meant to put into place? How do I get these resources? Just such rapid growth. How did you deal with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, it was tough. So the first thing I did, so my debut book, the I think the main thing I learned from that was you need a decent editor. Like it got to the point, the editor that I used didn't do a good job. I'm not even sure they're qualified at this point. Um, but they they don't work in this space anymore. Um, and I had a lot of, even though I had loads and loads of good reviews, the one thing that was letting it down, obviously I'm British, I'm writing American, there was a gap there. So the first thing I did was I tried to find an editor that would work with me. No, I know kind of what I needed help in, but I also need a quick turnaround. Like even now, I everything I do is quick. I cannot work any other way. So that was kind of my main thing that I was like, right, I need to get this right the second time round because I'm not being funny. It is slightly embarrassing even now. There's always going to be typos. You know, if it's a comma, stuff like that, it's not that I don't care, but it's not going to make me lose sleep. But then there's certain ones where you kind of do lose sleep over. Um, and I was like, I don't want to do that because it was at the point I would actually cringe. Like I would see like if he then gone back up. I think at one point he hit like top 20 and I was thinking, oh God, like people are gonna rip this to shreds, you know? Because you kind of got to balance, yeah, you're doing something great, but you know it's not the best kind of product that you could have put out. So that's the main thing I put in place. Um, and then the pressure to, I guess, follow it up. People loved the main female lead. And I was like, I need to make sure she's actually how I portrayed her kind of thing. Um, and I didn't love these characters as much as I loved the first ones, which I found quite difficult. Um, when you kind of have your heart set on these ones. And the third book, the second book to me was just like, I don't know. But the main thing was I had a lot of comments, I think, within the community that this either wasn't my first pen name, um, that it was kind of a fluke and the book kind of wasn't good enough to be what it was doing. Um, and all sorts of kind of negative stuff, um, which is kind of hard to take, especially when it's people that you look up to or have looked up to. And I was like, no, I'm not going to be a flop. I'm going to prove everyone wrong and I'm going to keep doing this. So I was that kind of like actually gave me the kick up the ass to be like, no, okay, we're going to prove them wrong. So I worked my ass off on that book. I got it out again fairly quickly. The main thing I think I changed in that was I realized the whole interconnected series. I needed to like entwine it a bit better, ready to go on to the next book. And that's kind of where I put my focus is on my actual writing, the editing of it. And where book one was doing so well, I didn't have to promo it as much because the pre-orders were kind of coming in from that.
Yeah.
Which I think I guess that's the good bit of main advice is make sure your first book in a series is strong, and that will then follow through. And even then, if you do have a book that's maybe not to everyone's taste or maybe isn't quite as exciting as the first one or the third one, you'll still have that follow through to be able to like keep going on the series. So yeah, then I released that one, I think I'm gonna say May 31st. After that.
You've smashed it. And I love, like, I live for this when you're just like, no, fuck you guys. I'm actually going to prove you otherwise. So, and I live for that because it is a really difficult industry. And unfortunately, and it may take some of us longer, but you have to back yourself up in this until you find the right group or the right people, your right tribe that really do genuinely support you 100%. We're
Yeah.
our worst critics. We already think that everything that we're writing at the time is
Yeah.
terrible. And then when you release it, people love it. You're like, huh, I did okay. I did okay. Fantastic. And then you do the cycle all over again. So I'm so glad that you didn't let it cripple you because you were in a very vulnerable position then as well. So it's really upsetting to hear that type of feedback as well. Like because I don't like that type. Like so it's not yeah. So if
No.
you have feedback like that for those that are listening, just come to Luna and I will remind you how amazing you are and bugger those guys in the nicest way.
Yep.
So bring me back then now. We have a new book release going, which is Crave, coming out in September, book 3 in the series. How are we feeling?
This book, I think, is my favorite book that I have to date written. Um, my favorite trope has always been brother's best friend, but it's never like fitted into where I need it. I've been desperate to write it, but it's just I've never had the characters to pull it off. And when I sat down to plot out series two, I was like, I'm doing this. I am doing this. Um, and it wasn't until book three I could fit it in, and I was like, oh no, I've got to write two whole books to get to this point, which was honestly like heartbreaking. But I'm here now, and I'm having a great time writing it. But he's my most, I think, unhinged and challenging character in one way to write because he doesn't understand human emotions at all. Like there is, apart from her, which he's had to study for 20 years to learn. Other than that, he's kind of clueless. He's Russian mafia with really broken English, which is what people kind of love. He comes out with the stupidest stuff almost on purpose at this point. He's funny. And he has a pet flamingo. Like that's the kind of level that he stole. Um, it's one of those books where I could literally just write anything and it would work for him because he's just so impulsive. Um, and that's kind of what makes him great and why I'm having such a good time with him. But I will say it really did hinder me writing book two because I was so desperate to just move on. And I'm there writing it going, and I'm writing Alexei in thinking, oh, this is really great. Yeah, I love him. And then I'm writing the main character of book two going, oh, you're just not quite him.
I
And then
love
I
the
felt bad.
honesty of the favoritism here.
I have favorites. I have favorites, yeah.
So, how have you then noticed your writing process? Has it changed much from the beginning? Do you sort of do like a 9 to 5, plotter, pantser, light candles, sinkomboya? What is your process?
I write better at night, which really kind of hinders my just anything. So I treat my 9 to 5 as admin stuff I don't particularly want to do and enjoy. That's what I do in the day. When I go into the office, I don't particularly write, not unless I'm really behind or something. Edit, even editing, I class as 9 to 5. But actual writing, I've tried to change my mindset on it that it's my hobby still. So I kind of do it in my free time or when I'm trying to get my son to sleep in the car, I'll go for a drive, get a coffee, park up by the beach, and I'll write on my phone. Because I was starting to kind of lose love for it, especially with the last book. So I actually spoke to my cousin and he's very into like mindset and he's a runner. He runs like 200-mile races up mountains and stuff. And yeah, no, it's not right,
It's
is it?
impressive.
Impressive, but also like, how did you get to that point? But I thought if anyone's going to tell me how to, I guess, change my mindset on stuff, it would be him. And he was like, well, yeah, because you've made it your job, the actual writing. So go back to making it your hobby. So now I sit there at night with like just on my Mac, telly on in the background, and I'll write. And I try and do it again. When I first started, I wrote my editor and my like author friends called my writing style like a Rubik's Cube. So I would write random bits that entertained me, and then I would try and slot them back in together to make it fit. And then I went into outlining and I wasn't enjoying it as much. Not so much the outlining, it was writing in order I was kind of struggling with, because my outlines weren't good enough to write out of order. So I've worked on that. So now I've got full outlines that are like chapter by chapter, quotes and stuff in. And then I know if I want to write Spice one day, I can just go through and be like, okay, that one I'm going to write. But it's also flexible enough for if something comes to me, because it's often when I'm driving, stuff will come to me in my head. Um, like random scenes that are normally like the ones that I market. They're the ones that pop into my head that have no relevance to the plot or the story. And then I have to try and make them worthy. Um, so I was kind of losing that a bit. So that's what I've got back. So with Alexi, it's constant that there's stuff popping in all the time for him, and I'm just writing it. I'll just get my phone up and I'll write wherever I am, um, and then slot it in the outline and just think, well, when I get there, I'll work out. Um, but it works better with my brain. My brain's all over the place most of the time. So I think there was no point trying to make me someone else that I wasn't, that was organized.
I feel like this guy is going to have like a novella added on to his book just of random shit he gets up to.
100%. Honestly, like I could just keep writing him for the rest of my life.
You're now 2 years in. So, what I find to be for a lot of people is usually when they get to about that 18 month to 2 year is when, when you first get into your crazy writing, like, oh my gosh, this is the best. I love my life. I love my life. And then you hit that 2 years and then you slow down and you're just like, why am I struggling with this? Why is this, especially for those who do go from a job to full-time writing, because obviously your structure is now different. You really had to cram it in. Now it seems like you have all the time in the world, yet you're still somehow wasting it away on something. And so I love that you bring up the point that you were saying it started to feel like work, because this is a common conversation that actually happens within the industry. And I'm sure there's a lot of people here who can relate to that as well. So I love the advice that he gave to you to try and make it feel like a hobby again. So what were some of the things that you implemented to try and really shift that mindset back to having fun with it instead of being like, I must write 10,000 words today?
Next book, I gave myself an extra few weeks on the pre-order rather than cutting it back. That was kind of the one thing, so it was less pressure. I mean, I'm already behind. Let's just not joke about that. But that's one way you could do it. The other thing was I actually kind of tried to get back into reading outside of my genre. So I was reading like vampire stuff to try and get that kind of back. And engaging more. So I was always very active on social media, and then suddenly I kind of wasn't, and I felt really then out of the loop. And I think that actually impacted it too. Like I wasn't speaking to a lot of my friends, a lot of my readers that kind of keep you inspired. So I know social media is really hard, but I actually find it kind of crucial to my job as such, because you want to know what trends, what people are loving. And where if you're rapid releasing, like kind of most indie authors are, you have time to change it if the market changes. Um, and also tweak it to be something you love. Um, so I was kind of, I think, writing for other people, it kind of got to rather than myself, is the other thing I noticed. So before series one, it was all for me. Like what I wanted to read, that was it. Then when I went into series two, it kind of went deeper. And that I love doing that. But at the same time, I was kind of missing out on the fun stuff that I enjoy writing. So it was just kind of, I guess, sitting there and working out what do I actually like writing and what kind of characters do I like writing. Now I've realized the books that I've struggled to write are the ones where the main male characters are really cold, and yeah, I guess they're like very dominant and stuff. But even the spice in that, I wasn't enjoying writing when it was too almost dark. Um, I prefer the funny characters where you can actually have fun with it and you can still do all this like really dark, spicy stuff, but it has like where, like, for example, Jax was a good boy and he was a switch. So you could have a bit of everything. Whereas Nikolai was just straight up cold. Um, and I can't connect with them as well. So I've kind of decided that all my characters need to at least have some sort of funny side for me to enjoy writing. Um, so that was one of the things I did. Obviously, time is the other one. You don't want to have the pressure as such. Um, I work better under stress, but not that much to the point that I actually at one point was in the garden like crying because I was like, I just can't do this anymore. So we don't do that. And yeah, then so my main thing that I changed was stopping writing at the office, only writing at home on my phone when I'm out. And trying to get those sparks back of like where you can tap into the character and they almost speak to you, which I know sounds mad, but it's not. Um, and that's where I find my best stuff comes from, is where it's just random and I'll be out or I'll be driving, and like a quote will come into my head, and I'm like, I need to do something with that quote. That they are the best scenes, and that's what I enjoy doing. So this book is less structured than my others, but I think this one will be the best of the series because of that.
I love so much that you were able to identify what it was that was perhaps hindering you in previous books, because I know, for example, what you said was completely relatable. I've recently discovered this about my own writing, and some books I'm just like, why am I struggling with this so much? Why is this book more exhausting? And then the next book, you're like, this is the funnest thing I've ever written in my whole of life. And it's because of that darker context. You know, when you are going through more, I want to say, like, it might not necessarily be trauma based or things like that. It's really exhausting for the writer to get into that headspace as well. Some people absolutely thrive and love in it, and that's completely fine. But if, for those who are watching, like, if you're noticing that you're struggling with certain aspects, really actually try and take the time out to figure out what it is, particularly about this book, that you're really struggling with. And it may be something, just as Luna had said. And then, you know, for next time, not that you're duplicating characters, but you know that you need more time for a book that's going to be a little bit more heavier and such.
Yeah.
But I think that's great advice. And I'm actually really impressed, like intuitive, like you've been so intuitive by the sounds of it in your journey. You're just like, this isn't for me. I'm going to do this. And like, girl, you're going to be around here for a long time. So I'm going to say you're doing all the right things now. Keep it up. What advice do you have then for authors who are wanting to delve into dark romance? It's a really hot, sexy genre at the moment. And one thing that caught me off guard was there's all different types of dark romance. You know, how dark are you? Are you a lighter dark romance writer? Are you really dark? So, yeah, advice for those who are wanting to delve into the darkness.
Mm. I would say you need to find your place, like your place, your lane that you want to start in, not necessarily stay in. I think that's the thing is building your brand where you can flip. I think if you go too dark to start, you almost, and that's where you find your readers, you're kind of putting yourself there and not so much the other areas. Whereas if you kind of go middle ground or even like lighter, you can then build from that. That's what I did. So distance is lighter, and then as the series goes on, it gets darker. So anyone could pick up a book in the series, whether you like it really dark, you pick up book 4. You don't want it that dark, you pick up book 1. Um, so you can, I guess, get into everything. I have realized that I love writing really graphic violence. Like love. The torture stuff, I am there like, how can I make this fun? Um, I also find it really good, like almost like stress relief, or if someone does really piss you off, like you can just sit there and you can be like, right, I'm gonna let this out. Um, but again, it's not for everyone. And I know I've spoken to authors who have been like, how can you write stuff like that? And I'm there like, I like it. So I don't dull it down, but you can make it less graphic. Um, and it's, I guess, being comfortable. The one thing I always say to people is you can't market or sell something, especially in like an art space, if you don't love it yourself. Because how can you expect other people to love your work if you don't? Um, and you know, if you're not into really, really dark stuff, how are you going to know what to pick to market? Because it's not your thing. You can pay people to tell you, but there's better ways to spend money. Whereas if you're writing something that you're comfortable in, you're always, I think your writing is going to be better because you're comfortable, you're happy. That's that's where you're gonna probably get more success than trying to, I guess, be either someone that you're not or trying to fit into a particular group. Um, you know, like for example, I don't think my books are particularly that dark, but some people will be like, they are really dark, that maybe, but other people will be like, no, that I want it darker. But I've had comments of people wanting it darker. I'm not going to change. That's one thing I've always stuck with is my brand is me. Um, and I kind of do, I will listen to what people want and take it on board if it's something I'm comfortable with. If it's not, they won't see it from me. Um, So I think that's the thing. You have to be almost a little bit selfish as an author, um, to make sure what you're doing is what you love, rather than something you don't love but think other people would.
This is like really good advice too, because there is so much noise happening. And unfortunately, sometimes even the closest author friends that we have, we really listen to their advice and we think, okay, well, if this worked for you, then I need to do a complete genre switch and I need to try and do this and that. And then you do all those things and you're like, actually, I still love paranormal romance. Like, I don't like this at all. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that people can learn that mistake the hard way, or you can listen to the advice that they're giving you, but trying to apply it for yourself. And some of it is testing and trialing. You may release books that don't necessarily hit what you were expecting, but you'll learn something from it nonetheless. So I think that's good advice about just still sticking to yourself and
Yeah.
listening, but not too deeply, perhaps. So I'm curious then, would you ever genre switch?
I would, the one thing I would do is kind of expand my universe to fit other things in. So it would always be kind of like dark in a way. So I want to do like a rock star romance, but I've written in a band in this series that like Jax was into. So it would still be part of this universe. It would still have mafia ties. Um, and like I love office romance. So I've got one of those kind of planned that I could do in the series. Would I switch out of dark? I don't think so, because I honestly think I would start killing people unnecessarily in the book. If I was to write like a sweet office, not sweet, but like a spicy office romance, I'd kind of get halfway and be like, okay, so who's gonna die? I'd have to make it sort of like traumatic, and then it would just go dark anyway, because that's where my love is. However, if I was ever gonna switch or got to the point where I was like, right, I need a break from my universe, I would go like vampires, or I don't know. That I think that would be where you would find me if I got a bit bored and needed a break or wanted to do something a bit different. You'd find me with vampires, or maybe
Love.
even like I don't know, something like that.
Oh, I can't wait. I feel like one thing that we should touch up on a little bit is interconnected series, because I think they work brilliantly and they kind of market themselves even. So, would you like to elaborate a little bit for those who are listening, the power of interconnected series?
Okay, so I think the main thing is you start to really develop characters that are later on. Um, you give them like a voice really early on in your series. People fall in love with them, and that will then keep your readers. So even if they don't like a particular book, but they've already met book four, they're probably going to continue, even if they didn't like book two, to book four, because they're desperate for that man or woman. Um, so you kind of have that, I think, as a benefit. Um, the other thing I think readers like, and what I like, is staying in the same world. I think there's a real power in staying in a universe, or not even a world, a universe, um, where you're going to see cameos of your favorite characters and people that you've almost fallen in love with a fictional character. You're going to see them again. Um, that kind of, I think, is a real cool thing. And also as an author, it's cool because the characters that you fell in love with aren't going anywhere. You can still write them in. Um, and also the plot. I think with mafia, you can get quite complicated. It can get quite complex. To resolve everything in one book is hard, and that's when you'll probably start to get reviews saying that it's rushed, or things like that. I think that's one of like the main criticisms I see of mafia, is like the rushed part. If you've got a long running series, your mafia subplot doesn't need to be resolved in book one. It can keep going, and you can keep adding, and it's quite like a versatile thing. You could get to book three and be like, this isn't working, or I'm getting bored, I'm going to kill this person off. um and that will change the whole course of it, but keeps the readers interested in side characters and the plot. That's kind of I think the main benefit. You build that relationship in the world. um and I killed off Luca's mum in book 3, and people were devastated, like absolutely devastated. And you can build these people up to make the emotions really like quite high. Whereas if it's just someone random that's appeared 30 pages before, their death isn't going to be that relevant. You're not going to get the crying videos on TikTok tagging you saying, you owe me money for therapy. But if you build someone up for 3 books, then kill them.
Look at the excitement on your face. You're like, your limited editions are just so on point, and I love that you have a store. And so I wanted to discuss why it's so important to have your own store where people can purchase directly through you, and any advice you have when it comes to creating discreet covers, dealing with cover artists, and all the good stuff.
Yeah. So the store, I don't know how many people are watching aren't in the US, but I'm in the UK. It is slightly more challenging, I think, when you're not in America to run these stores, especially when your audience is in America. Um, Again, it's one of those things you aim to kind of start small. You're doing it for the people that love your books, that want these editions, because they're the ones that are wanting multiple versions of your book. So you're doing it for them rather than like the wider population. Um, so first thing is like the covers. You with any like limited edition or discreet special, whatever they have to be good. Like I think covers are important anyway. Like one of the main things you have to get right. Regardless, people judge books by covers, but people won't spend money or extortionate shipping fees on a book that isn't good enough to look at. Like they've read the book, they just want something to look pretty. So that's kind of where you have to, I think. Um, it does take it does take a fair amount of time and effort, especially like, having the art to go with it, the bookmarks, because that's what people want to. Um, and it's sourcing the people that can provide this that's hard. Um, Within this industry, the one thing I struggle with is finding reliable people that will communicate, that will do what they say they're going to do, and provide a product that is what you're paying for or what you're expecting. And as an author, you're busy. Like the business side of it is busy. You don't necessarily have time to keep going back on covers, artwork, bookmarks, get stuff printed. But once you kind of do it, then you don't need to spend that much effort. It kind of then will start to run itself. Um, Using cover designers you trust, basically, which can be a process. It's taken me nearly 2 years. I now have 3 cover artists. I won't kind of go anywhere else now because we work well. I'm a rush person. I'm like, right, this is what I want and I need it soon. That's how my brain works. Some people are really organized and like, I'm not. I never have been. But if you're more organized than me, you probably could spend a lot longer, get them shipped from printers in China, and the profit margins are probably a lot better. But I don't particularly run my shop for profit as such. As long as I'm making some, I'm not doing it to make tons of money. I'm doing it to give back. And also it's handy for signings to have these editions. Yeah, to be honest, I do find it a headache. I can't lie to you. It's the one part of my business I'm like, my sister's hired full time as my PA. I moved her away from being my PA to run the bookstore, because once you've got the covers, you've got everything sorted. I didn't want to then be part of it apart from signing the books. Um, because it's a different level of customer service, isn't it? Like the customers that you're having as your readers, as your books is different. But when it's an actual product you're responsible for, if it's scratched, if it doesn't get delivered, you kind of have to think about all that stuff like you would running a shop. Um, so it's a bit of a commitment, I would say. Um, Depending on where you are in your career, focusing on writing, I think, is my priority still. Um, but advice if you want to do stuff like that is search your cover designers out, ask other authors for their feedback. If you see that they've posted Luna Mason like has used this cover, come and ask me what my thoughts are, because just because I've done a cover reveal with someone and used an artist, if I haven't used them again, it's probably a sign that there's a reason for that. And I don't think people realize as well that cover designers can have a big impact on your business. Like if your product isn't back or isn't done properly, the spine's not aligned, you can't communicate with them. I can't then put it on Amazon, let's say, for release day. I've had this happen a couple of times. So really researching that area. It's not, I don't think it's spoken about enough because people don't want to. Um, People don't want to slam other people's businesses. That's not what we're about. But at the same time, there's a lot of people out there that I think can really hinder your business, and cause you a lot of stress. I've found with this part of my business. Um, so ask authors that have used them for their honest thoughts, and that will kind of lead you in the right way, I think.
And I agree with you in this that we don't discuss this enough because our greatest resources are each other at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you when you say if you notice author friends or, people that even through social media, ask them because everyone's experiences are going to be different. But as you said, if somebody's able to wait a couple of months for a cover, then that's fine for them. If they're understanding that that's like what the expectation is. Whereas if you're expecting it back really quickly, you have sharp deadlines, a reader's going to be disappointed if they don't get it on time. That's really stressful. So I think that, yeah, definitely ask around. And as you said, I think it's kind of good that you have a couple of different artists as well. Because the thing is when you start with a new cover artist, I can guarantee you're not going to get the cover straight away, just like, oh my gosh, it's everything. You're probably going back and
Yeah.
forth easily 4 to 10 times, who knows, until you both get an understanding of your styles with each other. And this, I hope this doesn't upset anyone, but don't settle for less either. Like I know that I've been really uncomfortable in situations because I don't like to be like, it's just not 100%. Can you tweak this and this and this? And I can be
Just start
annoying,
there.
but yeah, 100%. But once you do that, you're going to love the cover that you end up with. Or if you don't, then unfortunately you have to move on to the next person. And it's not to say that they're
Yeah.
terrible. They do. It's just that you guys don't mesh, and that's fine. Whereas
Yeah.
I think some people do tend to settle, and then they're, as you said, they're not completely in love with the end product. So,
Yeah.
advice: hit Luna up, say which ones are annoying. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So,
Yeah.
I love it. What have you found then that's been the most surprising thing within the industry?
There's a few things. I think what you kind of have to sacrifice to run this. Um, it's one of those, I think industries, people are very guarded and it's not always the most open. I try to be, if I have authors DM me asking me questions, I try to answer as best I can. I have, however, had that has like shot me in the foot where it's not worked out. So I think you have to really look after yourself first and your business and your brand. Like everything I do now, I do to protect my brand. Um, and you've got to be strong on it. You really have to have thick skin, whether it's you accidentally end up on Goodreads or you see comments on Reels, because people forget, like I run my author in like my Insta account is me, not my PA. You won't find anyone else on there. And I think people forget that like I'm a person, like an actual human. And people will comment. Sometimes I find it funny, other times I don't really find it funny. Um, and I would never speak to people like that in real life or comment on stuff. Um, and you'll be surprised about who it is too. It's not always like readers. That's another thing that it can almost turn you quite negative, like this industry, like, and very guarded. I've had before, PAs will ask me, oh, could you do a swap with one of my authors? And I have to say, like, who is it? Like, I can't just say yes because I need to know who they are. Like you almost kind of panic and you're like, I don't know what people's intentions are. And you see a lot. And I like to keep myself to myself and I guess protect my brand, protect myself. But also I I'm very big on my community being a safe community and having to like protect that. Um, and that's whether I don't care who from, whether it is having to be other authors or readers. Like I'm quite relentless with that. That's kind of a challenge because you never know who is actually on your side. Um, and you can actually make friends with people, and then things happen, and you go, "Okay, great. That was a waste of my time. Like, thanks for that." Um, but at the same time, I'm quite a positive person, and I like to see the good in people. And you have to, I think, assess everything that you're doing. You're constantly aware of yourself, whether you're out at signings. Like it's a big adjustment, I think, um, which is a struggle in itself. But actually running it as a business, that is hard because there's so much that you don't like. I'm an author. I don't want to do maths.
Yeah.
Numbers aren't my thing. I've never been interested in numbers, and now numbers stress me out. It's constant, whether it's like how many page reads you've had that day, or like what your ad spend is, or paying people, invoice it. Like I hate all of it, but you have to do it. Um, that's kind of quite an adjustment, I think, is realizing that it is a business and you then have to become this like badass business bitch you didn't necessarily know you wanted to be. I just wanted to write spicy books.
Well, you were too good at it.
And now I've got to look at someone sent me a spreadsheet yesterday and I said, break it down like I'm dumb. Right. I get this spreadsheet and I just went, that's a lot of numbers.
Cool. What's it mean?
Oh, I don't know what any of it
Is it
means.
like a gold star? Or are we looking
Yeah,
like
is it good? Is that good? No. Yeah, so those good numbers or bad numbers? I don't know. Um, yeah, so that kind of thing, you have to learn you have to become good at almost everything, but you can't be good at everything, which that's when you start hiring people.
Yes, I was going to say we love delegation. And again, contact author friends. If there is something that you know that you can't stand or it's not your strength and you feel like you're just getting the life sucked out of you every time you do that. And if you have a budget for it, find the right person for it and just ask
Yeah.
around, ask author friends, do you know somebody who does this or this? It will save you many headaches, hopefully.
Yeah, it's fun. I love doing what I do. I think there's going to be challenges in every job. Um, but one where there's no real guidance and you have to wing it. I am 100% winging this. Like I know bits about what I need to do, but then other times I'm just kind of like, yeah, that sounds fine. We'll do that. Yeah.
What would you say then to date your greatest challenge and your greatest achievement has been for you in this writing career?
I would say my I would say my greatest achievement. I mean, one answer would be like my chart positions, especially with series one and Jax. Um, that's how at the moment that's how I kind of level myself. I compete with myself. So Frankie got to like 16. I was like, right, Jax needs to beat that number. I don't care what anyone else is doing, what anyone else is doing around me. I know that was my number. That's the number I've got to beat. So Jax 12 is now the number I have to beat, basically, which I want to do for Alexi. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try. You can never guarantee stuff like, but I'm gonna try my hardest with
Mine's
this
a
one.
flamingo.
Um,
I'm expecting top
yeah,
one.
yeah. Oh, imagine like the most unhinged book with a pet flamingo. Yeah, like I mean, if any book that I would want to hit like top 10 would be that one. Um, So like numbers wise that, but also achievements wise, I think actually like getting to the point where I am running the business and I'm expanding my team. Um, but not only that, like the team that I have now, the the kind of like things that they're learning and being able to like, one of my team, I actually basically pay what pay them a month pays their bills. Um, and I love doing that. And it's like then giving them more and like building them up. I love doing that. And you can see like the difference that it makes. And they've all made friends between themselves. And I'm really kind of like proud of that, that I have this team behind me that's dedicated to me, but also like they're bettering themselves and I'm opening up doors for them. As long as they don't leave me, like don't leave me.
Like you're
I'm
smart.
opening up doors, but like I will drag you back. um, so that's kind of like what I'm proud of is that. Challenges is consistency. Things change. You have to be on the ball 24/7 and you need to be able to switch like that. So if something's not working, you're going to have to drop everything and you're going to have to make it right, depending on how you advertise. Like mine is mainly TikTok. Well, TikTok hasn't been really working since like December. Um, so I'm having to constantly try and tweak stuff, moving over to Facebook, Instagram, trying to scale that, like trialing different things. And you as the author and the person running your business, you're responsible for that. Whether you like it or not, you can delegate it, you can get people to help you, but it's your business. And I think in any business, the person that's at the top is at the top for a reason, but they're the ones that work the hardest in a way. Like they oversee everything. So you've always got that kind of pressure, like, and you have to keep an eye on it. And even trends, like something might be okay one day, and then next thing you see on Facebook in a Facebook group, people hate that trope, or that is now not okay in society to be in a book. If you're not with the community, you're not going to know that. Um, so it's a constant challenge, and I find it quite stressful. Um, like 1 minute everything works, and then the next day you wake up and go, okay, well that's great, that's not working. How do we fix that then? And I don't think that'll ever change.
No. No. I honestly like I've been doing this for 10 years now and it just blows my mind how much like I've seen some stuff, but like it's just changed so much and it constantly does. And it's just wild and you have to a degree learned adaptability in this industry because if not you will struggle immensely, unfortunately. I'm kind of curious then, what is the big goal, what is the dream for you in your writing career? The bigger the better, I want to hear it.
I mean, I think any author will say you want to get on a list. Like, I want to get on a list. I I am making moves to make that happen at some point. I behind the scenes, I work on a lot of stuff that people don't see. Um, and that's kind of my goal, but it's not like an immediate goal. It's sometimes you have to just put things in place, keep doing what you're doing, and like that's kind of what I'm where I'm at the moment. That's where I would want to be. So whether that means being traditionally published, keeping self-published, there's a lot of stuff. Like I would like to break the market in the US paperback wise. That's been my goal this year is the paperbacks. Like I think that can kind of change or propel a career is being able to push those paperbacks, which leads me back to earlier covers. Like you need the covers. I didn't actually have any of my books on like Ingram anywhere until recently. I didn't know. I didn't
No,
know.
but honestly, because like when you're growing so quickly, you had exponential growth. So like this doesn't surprise me, but also I'm glad that you've now found it because you can use it for distribution.
Yeah, so I've only done series two because quite honestly, I find it hard work putting a book on there. They don't make that easy, do they?
No, they don't.
Um, so I've got books one and two, and they're actually selling really well on there. Um, but I've left series one because I'd have to re-get the covers, the barcodes, and all that kind of. Just so yeah, I haven't done that yet. I'm just testing it with season. I was going to say season two, series two. That's kind of what I wanted to do this year was my goal, pushing the paperbacks and seeing like what I can sell. Because those are, I think that's what kind of makes you more of a home brand is the paperbacks. Which may mean that I have to take my male model covers, and maybe they aren't my paperbacks. But I'll see. I know. I think shop so it's discreet, isn't it, at the moment?
Very much so. But that's okay because then you'll still be able to get them at signings and events, right? Right.
Yes.
Limited editions.
I would never. I have too much fun looking for male models, um, to ever stop that. Like I am a male model cover girl, always have been. I will shamelessly get on the train with my dirty book with the naked man on the front, and I don't care. That is me. I don't need anything to cover that. Um, so yeah, that's kind of big goal. But when or how I get that to happen, I don't know. I'm just gonna keep trudging away, releasing books, and then see what happens.
I love this. The world's your oyster. And I honestly, I don't think it'll be too, I don't think you're too far off that goal. So I'll have to like get you back on in like 6 months. Be like, cool, what's the new goal now?
Um, go on holiday.
Yeah, you sound like you need it. I'm not going to lie. I have speed dating with an author. So basically, what it is 5 rapid questions, but I lit a candle. I've created ambience. Are you ready?
Nice. I am.
What is the clumsiest moment you've ever had?
I'm gonna go for this is the funniest and clumsiest and just explains me in one go. I went to Disneyland Paris, like my favorite place on earth. I've always wanted to go. I went there and I thought it would be an absolutely brilliant idea to go out the night before. It wasn't a good idea. I got to Disney. I got in the line to like buy some Disney ears because who doesn't? Like this was supposed to be like the best day of my life. No, I then had to run off. It gets worse. So I'm then throwing up next to a castle type thing. And then I look up, the door open, like this gate thing opens, and Cinderella walks past, right? Not only that, she looks at me, tuts, and shakes her head like I am disgusting. I could have been ill. She didn't know that I
Got
was
shamed by
hungover.
Cinderella.
Yeah, I got absolutely violated by Cinderella, and it made me feel so awful. Um, that I actually left, went home, and had a nap because I thought I can't do this. So that was probably like my not so much clumsy. Like I do clumsy stuff, falling into places, like crashed my car the other day, clumsy. Um,
Are you okay?
oh yeah, it was fine. It was in a drive-through, so I had to get me. That was the most expensive coffee I've ever had. Drove into the back of someone. Yeah, but that's like the standout moment I think of my life that I look back on and laugh. Like Cinderella's disgusted by me.
What is the song that best describes you?
So I put this one out to my readers on my Instagram stories. We had a few come in. So I think the main one was anything sleep token is what reminds my readers of me. Um, and my favorite then sleep token song is Chokehold. So that would be my choice. But then the majority of my readers also said anything by X Habit is Luna Mason. So if you haven't listened to his stuff, not only he's lovely, he's the one that gives me the links inside the books. So yeah, I've kind of like made friends with him, and we're very like supportive of each other. I've sent him my books, every release I'm like hyping him up. I love his music. And he's really lovely. So yeah, apparently any of his songs, but they're like dark romance, dark, spicy. So
Check it out because I haven't heard him, but now I definitely want to. So I'm going to check it out.
very good for marketing materials in dark romance.
Ooh, I'll have a look. What are the 3 words that best describe you?
Number one, chaotic, massively. Um, Two, I'm very impulsive with everything. And I'm gonna say it's in a good way. Um, Maybe not for my finances, but like in general, it's good. I'll do fun stuff. Someone says you want to do this, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Don't really think of it through. Um, I think the other one I'm quite sensitive. I'm a sensitive person. If anyone describes me as you're a sensitive soul, I'm like,
You've already answered this one, but who has been your favorite character to write and why?
oh yeah. So Alexei is my new answer, but nobody else has met him yet, apart from me. Um, Before that point, I would say it's Luca from Devoted. He again, he's funny, not quite as funny as Alexei, but yeah, I loved writing him.
What is a unique talent or skill set that you have that not a lot of people know about?
So I used to run a like cake baking business before. So that was like my side hustle. Because I was before training to be a lawyer, then I would bake cakes. Found it very therapeutic. So I'd make like, like the designery kind of cakes with the drips and all the fancy toppers and like making, I don't know, ballet shoes or dogs out of fondant. A few wedding cakes. Um, yeah, so that's kind of my skill. I haven't done it in a while, but I guess I could still do it.
I have had so much fun having you on. So let us know, obviously, what is coming up for release, and most importantly, where do we find you?
So release next one is Crave. That's Alexi. That's September the 20th. Um, the best place to find me is on Instagram, author Luna Mason. Yeah, that way around. Um, and that's where I post most of my stuff, unhinged stuff in my stories, actual updates on my feed. Um, yeah, that's what's coming up next. That's my last release for 20. We're in 2024. Yeah, that's my last release for for that. The series finishes in January. January, I can't remember what day I'm releasing. Mid-Jan, somewhere is Claim. I know a lot of people are excited for him. He's the masked man that nobody knows. You'll meet him in January. Um, and then I will have a Kickstarter starting around October to keep an eye out for because they are going to be epic.
So I'm assuming then perhaps sign up to your newsletter. So then when you have started that Kickstarter, you're gonna let everyone know.
Yeah, yeah. So on my Instagram, in my bio, I've got my link tree. So you can sign up to my newsletter there. And then all my socials are then on there. I've got a Facebook group, Luna Masons, Mafia Queens, which is fun. It's fun in there. Yeah.
That's amazing. I can't wait to see them because I know what to expect from your covers now, and I just know these are going to be gorgeous. So I'm so excited.
I am too. I'm waiting on one piece of art. That's all I'm gonna say before I can get them done.
So excited. Well, I have had so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on. And who knows, we might get you back in a year or so and see what you're up to.
Thank you. I've had a lovely time.
Amazing. All right, guys. Well, we're going to love you and leave you. Bye.
Bye.